a friend from France sent me a copy. So, but it was, it's another of Siddha Rameshwara's conversations or sermons. So it's really nice. So anyway.
So that's in addition to the, because I know Amrit Leia, I've got that on Kindle, but this is a totally new book.
Well, this is number 3. You may have it on Kindle, I'm not sure, but I had Amrit Leia 1, Amrit Leia 2, and I never heard of Amrit Leia 3 until just kind of recently. So this is Amrit Leia 3, and it's a smaller book.
No, I had it. Yeah, I had it from last year. When I went to Ashram last year, they made a printed copies of Amrit Leia 3.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it on Kindle, Andrew? Even I forgot to bring it when I was coming in a rush. I forgot it in my car.
Yeah,
It's a very good.
I don't know if it's. I looked on Amazon, and I didn't see it there. So, but a friend from France, actually, Laurence, I wrote to her, and she had access to this copy. Apparently, it's produced there. So, I can maybe write her and see if there's any more copies that you guys may want. She just requested the. It was €8 for the book and then postage. So, yeah, if you guys want it, I can maybe just email her and see if she can get more copies.
What does that mean, Amrit Leia? What does it mean?
I think it means what the stateless state, or right, John?
That's what it. Yeah, on the book that I have, it says. I didn't know how to pronounce it. I said Amrit Leia or Amrit Leia, and then stateless state. But Leia.
Well, yeah, the pronunciation is anyone's guess.
Oh, okay.
That's good luck.
Yeah.
Actually, Manohar should know exactly how to pronounce. Yes.
Yeah.
John, I know, John.
What is it in the?
Sorry, was I on a mute? Sorry, I don't know. I'm not able to figure out this new thing. Amrita Leia.
Amrita Leia.
Yeah, Amrita Leia. Amrita is like it's a nectar, right?
Right.
Nectar of immortality is Amrita. Leia is like the state.
Okay.
Immortal state.
Okay. Good.
The immortal state. That's great. Yeah.
That's great.
That's Keith.
Yeah, hi Andrew, welcome back.
Oh, how you doing, Keith?
Hello.
that guy I invited, he never got back to me, so I guess he's not interested.
Okay.
I hope we're recording the silence.
Yeah, I thought maybe we should have a meeting where we just hang out in the Amrita Leia.
Now, I like to hear John give us wisdom. I just can't think of a question.
Ask him how to pronounce your name.
I'm glad I don't have to sign checks that way. I'd never get anywhere.
2YZXON. Okay. We'll just call you
Yeah,
2YZ.
yeah, it's just a pack of extended conversations. It's really good, actually. It's like Sri Siddharama Maharaj speaking on it on a variety of topics. It's more like it more borders on it's like an instruction manual, what to do. It's like it speaks to you pretty much on the practice, just like Ultimate Truth, what Maharaj has written. So it's like that. It's just that. It's like another 50 years old conversations, right? Or 100 years old conversations. So, but it's just like when I read it, it's just like it speaks to me. I was like, man, this little book. I just picked that book in the ashram. And there were new versions of I Am That or Selfless Stuff. And then there was Amritalaya 3. I said, okay, let me pick this book. And then when I picked it, when I read it, man, I thought, man, this small book really packs a lot of punch. So that was my observation. So
Yeah, Siddha Rameshwar was really an extraordinary teacher. Just extraordinary, and he died at the age of 48 of diabetes.
Oh, true. Wow, that's young.
Yeah, just really incredible.
How long did he teach?
I don't really know. I mean, that's all I the only thing I know about him is some of the, like the Amrit Laya books and so forth, and Master Self-Realization. But I think, John, a long time ago, you sent us a PDF on some of the disciples of Siddha Rameshwar that got together to write about his story, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it gives you a lot about him when he first began with Bal Sahib Maharaj. I didn't read it all, but I know I got to have it somewhere in my emails there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just recently, I sent out again the Google Drive that has all the lineage texts, like all the stuff, even the stuff they sent from the ashram, all of it. So any of those, and that you're mentioning is in there as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then there were some bhajans in there too, right?
I think so, yeah. I think there's some videos in that folder as well, where it says lineage texts, and then there's some videos, because a while ago, the ashram folks had done a really nice video on Nisargadatta Maharaj, which then I saw when I was still on Facebook a while ago. There was they were selling that same video, so I don't know, it was taken down or whatever, but it's in the folder, and it was from the WhatsApp feed in like original, whatever you want to call it, before it went commercial.
is that like a bhajan, John, or is it like a documentary?
It's a documentary. It's
Okay.
it's all about Nisargadatta Maharaj's life, from like very early to, him meeting Siddhameshwar Maharaj and going on his spiritual journey, and then how, he came to the realization and all of that. It's a really good documentary, and it had Ramakant Maharaj was in it. That's why it was on the WhatsApp feed. But then because Sailor Bob was on it too, I guess, and I saw that in Facebook, and they were trying to sell it. So, but I have the original copy in that folder. That's, it's free, of course. It was before they put a price.
Yeah, Sailor Bob met Nisargadatta, didn't he? Wasn't he?
I think he was a disciple of Nisargadatta, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and he's still alive. Sailor Bob is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
In Australia, I
Somewhere
think.
in Australia, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
There was
I
a
tried to
lady,
meet John.
I can't remember her name, but she was like with Sailor Bob, and her Facebook feed, who I was a friend with, they had it on there. So, but they called it something different. At the ashram, it was called, I think, Tatvamasi or something like that, and they called it something different. What is the same video?
Well, the frustration is the mind is so busy. It's off running and this and that and worrying
No, but I mean, you can sit on the hill and watch it play. In the mind, I think Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the busy mind is going to be busy, but you're totally outside of it. You just observe this busy mind like you would if you were on a picnic lunch and you watch children playing. You sit on the side of the hill and you watch the children play.
It seems like it's me, though.
But then that's where you remain prior to beingness as the witness of presence, and knowing that this mind came along with the body that appeared on the spontaneous presence. So you're totally removed from that.
You can't possibly be it because you can see it. If you can see something, it means you're prior to it.
Well, and once you know your formless nature, then the mind is producing thoughts in form. The mind can only produce thoughts based on what it knows, memory and anticipation based on kind of gathering objects together and projecting. So when you know you can just right there, boom, fall back into the formlessness and observe. And that's it. Like we were talking about last week, the formless sense of presence. That sense of presence is the closest thing to your own self. It was the first illusion, so to speak, the sense of existence. And then, as Maharaj says, that sense of existence, that spontaneous presence, the entire world appeared with that, like a dream. When you lay down one speck of that consciousness, boom, creates a whole dream world. It's the same. The consciousness that arose based on I exist projected this entire dream world. But none of it's true. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So the mind is saying, oh, make sure you get to work on time, or, oh, I have nothing to do, or blah, blah, blah. But it has nothing to do with you. It's like the script that's being given, like read, so to speak, from this character that you're playing in the dream. That's why you have a picnic lunch, sit on the hill and watch the children play. Or sit on the bank of the river and watch the sludge as it goes by, and don't jump in the river and flow along with it. I mean, your mind literally it stills because there's nothing to say. It's like there's nothing that it can cause any interest whatsoever. Except, you use, like Maharaj says, the mind's instrument, ego, intellect, mind, they came together. You use them sparingly, like pickle, he talks about. When the mind is needed, it arises and it's there. Like you say, okay, I'm going to plan to be at my friend's house Thursday at 2:00, and I have to bake cookies because she asked me to bake cookies. So mind is being used. Okay, before I go to this friend's house, I need to bake these cookies. I follow the instructions on the ingredients and all of that, but then it's finished. It's a spontaneous action without any kind of memory and without a footprint saying, oh, I baked these cookies, how wonderful I am. And I'm driving to my friend's house thinking about the wonderful baking of the cookies and how great I am as a cookie baker. And then my friend says, hey, I don't like these cookies. And I take offense because, oh, how dare you not like my cookies? Rather than just we're going and having some cookies and some tea.
It's like a lesson in not taking it personally.
Yeah, because there is no person. The two objects that are in front of you, neither one is an individual. The only way you can think that they're individual is when you sort of run that dialogue through your head or through your mind and say, I'm having cookies with this friend of mine, and then you remember the memories of how you know this friend and the memories you spent together, and you start to talk about it and all that. But don't get lost. You could do the same thing in a dream. Tonight I could dream that I go to Andrew's house, and we're sitting there enjoying cookies and tea. But it never happened. It wasn't that. It was just a passing, spontaneous moment. And the dream consciousness and waking consciousness are exactly the same because it's only one consciousness. That you are, that nothing, boom, suddenly I exist, and all the world appeared in that spontaneous presence. All the world. That means you that you believe you are falling asleep, waking up. That's what we were talking about last week with Basil. It was like one continuum. What's deep sleep and waking state? It's one continuum. You that you are is behind everything. Your presence is behind all things because everything is appearing on spontaneous presence, including all the dream people and all the dream thoughts about these dream people. So whenever you start to get carried away, you just remain with presence. Your attention needs only be on presence because everything is appearing on that presence. And all these things are happening and taking care of themselves. It doesn't need a lot of attention. In the moment, you do something. You pick up I'm thirsty. I can't just say, well, presence is going to make this body drink. There's an action that is occurring. Ego is taken using this body form so that a formless something can drink. Because the thought comes, this body needs water, which it does, or if you don't supply food and water, it dies. So a thought comes, I would like water. The formlessness uses form to pick up another form, put that form down. Water is felt in the body. Everything's nice. I'm no longer thirsty. But the I that was thirsty actually wasn't thirsty.
The real I wasn't.
Yeah, the I that is having the concept of thirst is not thirsty. The formlessness can't be thirsty. Can sky be thirsty? No. And sky is using this cloud, this form, to say, I'm satisfying my thirst. But the sensations in the body are, if I don't drink, and my mouth gets dry. And then the thought comes, and this is perfectly okay thought. Like Maharaj says, thought comes, oh, I'm thirsty, mouth is dry. I drink some water and I put it down. I'm not making a big celebration about having this water. And tomorrow at the same time, I'm not thinking, oh, yesterday I had water at this time. I wonder if I'll have water again tonight. It's not. There's no impressions, no footprints in memory, no doer, no sense of doership. Anytime the formlessness wants to act, it acts using the body. Because formlessness can't act unless it channels through an instrument. Otherwise, the space in this room can't do anything. This is not responsible for anything. It can't do anything. It can't move anywhere. It's just here. However, the space that I'm breathing in and breathing out goes into this body, performs an action, breathes back out. It's the same. Prana, I think they call that, the life force. When the last breath is gone, boom, body is a lump of flesh. Bananas rotting on the table. People say some nice words about the bananas and put them in the ground or burn them.
I put them in the blender.
There you go. Well, that's a little bit. In the analogy we're using, that would be a little Jeffrey Dahmerish, but okay.
Put them in the what?
The blender.
Not in his way of using it though.
Speaking about the river, you know, like when I'm here in New Orleans, oftentimes I take a walk along the levee.
Yeah.
You know, like
Took
it's
your Chevy to the levee?
And the levee is
to the levee, yeah. And you just, you know, you can walk for miles and miles and miles. Basically, I walk just maybe about an hour and a half, something like that. And while I was walking, you know, like the thought came to, you know, like Ramana Maharshi. One time when I went to Ramana Ashram many years ago, and I went into Virupakshu Cave, which is
I've been there.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Yes. That's the one that's right near the entrance to the city. It's right near the city.
Yeah, it's a small cave. You got to crawl into it.
Yeah.
And he spent a lot of time there. And within the cave, there's a lingam, a Shiva lingam.
Yes.
And, I crawled in there and I knew there were people in there, but you can't see. It's so dark.
Yeah.
But I was just sitting there and, it seemed like a voice came to me from outside of myself, but, it wasn't, of course. But what I heard was, stay here.
Oh.
And so I was walking in the levee and just that thought came to me, stay here. And, like I was looking at it over my life, I've had moments like that where I didn't get a voice that said, stay here, but moments where you really are completely sort of in the presence, basically. And that's, like I think Ramana speaks about merging the mind into the heart. And then Ramakant speaks about being with you, stay with you. And every master has a different way of expressing that. But basically, what I really felt was that, what I saw was that when you really are there in the presence, you can tell when you're there because there's no fear and there's no desire.
Yeah. There's
nothing like that. And when you're not there, there can either be a desire for something or a fear of something. It's just really a quick way of just sort of like, I think discrimination, just being there, staying with you, remaining with you, it erases fears and desires. And then the more, when I get stays there, the more things happen spontaneously. They just kind of like happen when they're meant to happen.
Because that's seeing the reality from the place of the seer of the reality.
Yeah.
And if the whole thing is when that presence is felt, to remain with this, now this sense of presence. That formless knowingness knows this sense of presence.
Right.
And you remain as that's the only thing you see. And when you say you get caught up in the world or whatever, you remain with your focus totally on that presence as the knower of this sense of presence. And anything that you're seeing beyond that presence, is illusion. So you're not caught up in it. And eventually the presence becomes like a very thick window that you can't really see the world anymore out of because it's very, very thick and it gets thicker and thicker. And you're paying attention just to the presence. Just I, nothingness. And you know this presence. And as you are the knower of this presence, and it will be like a very good example of looking out a window on a snowy day, and the snow starts to cover and cover and cover, and you start to see things out on what's happening, but mostly you can't see out the window anymore because the presence is so thick. Now, thick, these are concepts, but this is a concept of, yes, you're the knower of the sense of presence, you remain there. When the sense of presence is there, just dive into that with this kind of understanding intuitively that this presence is so subtle, the entire world is appearing on this spontaneous presence, and I'm the knower of that.
Right.
The presence is the formlessness in which the form world appears, and I'm this knower. I'm prior to beingness, because beingness was the sense I exist, which then was the sense of presence that expanded into the entire world, just like you fall asleep at night, I exist, boom, creates the dream world. So prior to beingness is prior to this presence. So that you are witnessing the presence, you kind of stay behind the lines and you don't go further. It's okay, presence. And I don't need anything other than this presence. No matter how much world may be going on out there, presence is so with me, within my knowingness, that there's nothing else. There's just the presence. And I can still speak to the people and do this and do that and all that, but my focus is on the presence. And I know that everything that's occurring outside, so to speak, of this body is on the spontaneous presence. Now, truly, this body is also in that spontaneous presence, Because the nothing, this something, suddenly I exist, boom, world is created. I remain prior to beingness, prior to the sense of presence that expanded into the entire world of which this body is a part of.
And staying with the presence that's the whole practice. Like it's, and you do whatever you can. You do the mantra, you do the bhajans, you read.
Because that's clearing.
Yeah.
That when you're talking about mantra and such and bhajans and all of these things, presence is always there, but the attention seems to go out away from that presence. And all these bhajan and mantra is clearing away all the conceptual kind of layers that are trying to cover up this presence so that you're observing only the presence. Once you clear away all the stuff, then you just have presence. That's the way it actually is. And even again, because of the knowingness of this presence, presence is illusion as well. Because that was the sense of existence. I exist. There's a knowing of this existence, but that's absolutely illusion. Because in the true state, there is nothing to know. Oh, it's only one. There's no, and even one isn't talked about because with one you start a chain of numbers. There's nothing. That's the one. When you say nothing, there's nothing. It's because it's everything, all things and everything, and there's no way to distinguish between until the existence. Oh, I am knowing this sense of existence, and then this whole world is created on top of that.
And that sense of existence is basically the I am, which is an illusion too, but that's about as far as you can go, I guess.
Well, knowing that you're the knower of this sense of presence.
Yeah.
While in body form, there's a knowing. Without a body form, there's not a knowing because there's nothing other to know. There's nothing. Only through the concept of separation can this body that senses the presence, which is the original concept that created all of this, can you know yourself? And that's why Maharaj says, the sense of existence blew this whole world, and you're like, oh, I'm in this world because you believe you're this body. Then you know yourself in a real sense, recede, 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 and the farthest you can recede is the presence, and then the very subtle knowing that you are the knower of the sense of presence. And that's the formless knowing without anything to know other than the sense of presence. You just remain there. Just like a window. You're looking out the window, you see the children playing and cars running and all this kind of stuff, but you're just, the window is too thick. You can barely make out what's going on outside. Nothing to be alarmed about. And now that eliminates mind because there's nothing for the mind to look at. You're concentrated on presence, and presence is so thick. It's like, it's not thick, but conceptually you can view it as so thick that thoughts can't, they can't rush through. It's kind of like a honey or a jello or something where thoughts just can't. The presence is so here that thoughts can't come in. It's just presence. And there's no touch of body felt because it's just presence.
And the honey gets thicker and thicker too, I guess.
Absolutely. Because you're clearing away all the illusory layers that are not that presence. Everything that you know appears on spontaneous presence. The last thing that you know that's the closest to reality, sort of the doorway to reality, is the I am or the sense of presence.
And while I was walking along the levee, I thought of the times in my life when I kind of was there, basically in that sense of presence. but I didn't have the awareness of what to do about it or anything like that. Like it would be there and it was great. And, I didn't know what I was really up against in a sense. I didn't have the ability to have the vigilance that is really required. I mean, like, Maharaj speaks continuously a lot about being vigilant. Now, maybe that there comes a day when you don't need to be as vigilant, but I don't know. I take it for granted. I need to be vigilant right now. So, because he said you can, like it takes a long time to grow a tree, but you can cut it down in 5 minutes.
Right.
I've had that happen to me before. And, so I know how, like easy it is to be, conned by whatever, the illusion,
in my own self.
Yeah.
Because I went, I found myself in a very hopeless state. I went to AA, worked steps that kind of cleared away all the kind of wreckage and all the mind stuff and caught that glimpse of presence and felt it, but didn't really understand what it was. It was just like, okay, I feel this. And coming from my background of Christianity and such of this, I said, oh, that's the presence of God. So I surrendered to that presence of God. It was just a subtle presence. But then I started to understand that, like, when I did things that were like really kind of mind creating, the presence, I wouldn't feel it as strongly. So then I kept, okay, more to myself, more to myself. Again, I'm praying to God and believing that this presence is the presence of God. So in every circumstance, even when the presence was the size of a dime, my attention would go into it. And the presence kind of taught me then, when things are really crazy out here, because I was early in sobriety, when things are crazy out here, dive into the sense of presence and you feel safe. And that was like this safe space to go. Just go into that presence, keep going. Every so often, go into the presence, feel very safe. Then that presence began to expand because the attention was even more. And I noticed that good things and bad things and even people being angry and all of that, it was okay. The presence seemed to me to be a growing bubble where all these activities could occur inside of it, and I was quite okay. This led then to Maharaj, because this sense of presence that I was absolutely obeying, like, because I didn't understand that it was, okay, this is myself. I thought this is the presence of God. And so when I felt it very strongly, I basically did whatever it said to do, whatever, not saying, but the feeling. Even on the internet, I would Google various things through feeling. I could feel, and music and such, I could feel the presence in these things. It sort of guided. So it guided me. That's one of the reasons with Maharaj, even though he's left the body, I met him before I met him in form. I met him as that sense of presence that guided me to India. And then it was recognized like immediately that that sense of presence that had started to grow and that guided me all the way to India was standing right in front of me. And Maharaj says, oh, you are not body, you were not body, you're not going to remain the body. And the sense of presence around him grew. And then the explanation was very simple. It's not growing, you're dissolving. You're dissolving all the falseness in which you were holding on to you. And in the journal entry, when I was at the airport, I typed and I wrote, I am headed to India to meet the presence and surrender completely and totally to that presence in the form of Sri Ramakant Maharaj. May anything that I am be left there. And that's, you just totally involved in that presence. The presence in the Christianity, I understand it's like the Holy Spirit and being taught by the presence, and that the Holy Spirit basically guides you and teaches you and sort of this sort of thing. And it's the same. You're being taught directly by the presence in the form that you're believing yourself to be now, until the presence then reveals that it's its own self that's the presence. And everything else was just layers that are not needed.
You know, Saint Ignatius of Loyola was the founder of the Jesuit order, and in the 1500s, he was a soldier. And he's kind of like a nobleman, a soldier in the Spanish army, and he was wounded in a battle. And he was so vain that when his leg was healing, the bone was sort of like crooked. So he, you know, when he saw that, the bone was protruding in his leg. He took a big stone and just broke his leg again and straightened it out himself. So that's, you know, and then he eventually went into a great period of despair. He went into Manresa. It was a cave where he was going to kill himself. And, you know, while he was convalescing, he was reading books on chivalry, you know, about romance and chivalry and so forth, courtly chivalry and all that. And then someone gave him a collection of the books of saints' lives, so he started reading that. And he began to notice that when he read the books on chivalry, there would be an excitement and a rush, but he would feel empty. And then when he would read the books on the lives of the saints, he would feel a certain kind of fullness, you know, a sense of deep peace. And so that was basically the beginning of his whole turnaround, you know, like just like you were talking about with, you know, in the AA situation, you know, yeah. Just that sort of simple, basic discernment of what is life-giving and what is really not, you know, it's, and it sometimes takes a real crisis to kind of bring you to that point.
Yes.
Where you start weighing things like that. But that was really what brought him around, actually. And then, you know, he founded the order, and basically the whole thrust of his spirituality was creating a relationship between the person of Christ and the, you know, like the disciple. So it was like introducing the members of the order, as well as people who wanted to do a retreat, introducing them to Jesus as the guru, in form, you know, like to be their teacher. So basically, that was a revolutionary thing in spirituality for that time, of course. But anyway, but it was interesting, you know, because his whole and then his whole philosophy, or you might say the thrust of that type of spirituality, was being a contemplative in action. So it's holding that place of presence, but at the same time being involved.
Yes.
In everything else. So a contemplative in action. And it's the same thing we mentioned a few weeks ago about the dancing Shiva. You know, you look at the image, the eyes are perfectly still, but all these arms are representing the involvements in life, but there's keeping that equanimity in the midst of all this worldly activity.
Yes.
But it's holding that center. So, you know, it's really, that presence is really the key. It's just in cultivating the habit to kind of slowly stay there more and more, you know, regularly, 24/7.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, to me, in the beginning, it was basically because it was replacing the buzziness and the high that I would get from drugs and alcohol were sort of being given by this sense of presence. It was such a deep peace and like a mind stilling. In the very beginning, it was, and the presence also led me to read about St. Paul and St. Francis. That was like, and you could feel, and there were so many like feelings. I don't know how to really describe it, but like what you were saying about the discernment of, I'm reading about St. Francis, and this presence is, I guess, as Maharaj would say, it's my story. You know, the presence is sitting there recognizing that St. Francis, St. Paul, all this, and the way it happened and the way it came about, that same presence was teaching through that was teaching those forms. And there's a recognition in that. And it's a very powerful thing. And you just, for for me, I abandoned myself completely to the presence. Even had, I mean, it was literally just, but see, at the time, the concept was still there that this presence is God. And then I understood that basically it's me and God is kind of creating this world for me to see. And it's not about the people, it's about my interaction with that presence, and how then, you know, you can't lie, you can't cheat and all that, because you're cheating the presence. You can't sit there and do wrong things, because the presence, and the more you would do this, it would reflect in the next moment. So you started doing the next right thing, and the presence you would feel was sort of pleased. And more prayers, and going out on the internet, and every morning reading various prayers and all this stuff. It was just surrendering to that presence. And like I said, even in there was a situations, and I used to tell people, in the situation where the presence is just that small, dive into it, because that's all there is. Again, like I said, I thought that presence was God outside and then me. And Maharaj, when I came to him, cleared that like instantly, basically. And then with the mantra, the hand on the head and whispering the name, and even presence had given me the mantra of the Yo Sao Soham Ham Saha Soham Asmi, because again, everything was, okay, presence, you know, I feel this, show me, teach me. And the internet nowadays is a beautiful place to just go and dive very deep. And then the present, you know, okay, here's a mantra now. And I wanted to go see Maharaj, and on the ramakantmaharaj.net website, required reading was I Am That and Master of Self-Realization. I Am That, I read it first, and I started to feel even deeper. The presence was very pleased. Now, I have to be honest, I was so excited with I Am That. And then when I ordered the Master of Self-Realization, I had to put it down. Like, I started reading it and I was like, oh my God, this isn't like I Am That. I can't read even a page. And then there was starting to Skype with Maharaj. And then after Skyping with Maharaj, you could sit and that same flow. It was almost as if the book had changed, and it was no longer like so dry. It was more, you know, a flow, and you could read this and feel it. And Selfless Self, my God, that was like the very first time, just kept reading it, and you could feel presence was just flowing so powerfully through the book. And then Maharaj would say, it's your story. It's the reader's story. And then I understood that the presence was using this body and these eyes to read, and recognizing that this is reality. We're talking about our selfless self.
It's true. Beautiful.
And this is everyone's story. Every person who's believing that they're on this spiritual journey is that presence, and that presence is teaching you. And basically, the more you remain with yourself and don't give yourself away to illusory passing world, the more this presence is pleased, the more the I Am, as Nisargadatta Maharaj says, reveals all the secrets. And that's really like, you know, then you come to Maharaj, who is the presence in form in front of you while you're believing your form, and says, guess what? You're not a form, and that presence that you feel is your own selfless self. And the more that you stay with the selfless self and don't, you know, you be with you always and don't go out into the world. And then he explains it even further. Understand that the nothing, the sense of existence appeared to that nothing, and the entire world appeared on that spontaneous presence. Just that speck of I exist created this entire world, and you believed for a time that you were this body in this world. But when you know yourself in a real sense as that formless reality that is the knower of the sense of presence, then the world loses its bite. How can it do anything for you, to you? You don't, and mind starts to say, oh, worry about this and worry about that. But mind came along with body. Maharaj says the mind, ego, intellect came along with the body, which you are not, and can only produce thoughts based on memory of the form world, which you absolutely know. Well, the form world is appearing on the spontaneous presence that I am the witness of this. Without witnessing, because it's just there. There's not like an active witnessing. It's just, yeah, I exist. And now the kind of remnants of that explosion of I exist is felt through the body form as a subtle sense of presence.
And it sounds like the sense of presence, like you were talking about the honey getting thicker or something, the more you recognize it, the more easily it is recognized, because it's building, you're building up the, I don't know, like a muscle that is a recognition of that. So then it becomes easier to recognize.
Well, like Maharaj talks about, you meditate on the meditator until there's no meditator. The meditator disappears.
Yeah.
The instrument that was used to know presence is now seen as just an instrument in presence. And the knower of the sense of presence is known as prior to beingness. So your objective awareness, so to speak, is only on the presence. While you're doing everything else, it's like if someone were to dump green paint on your head and you went to work, you still have green paint on you. And you go on the bus and you still have green paint on you. And you go outside, you still have green paint on you. Same thing in the presence. You have this sense of presence and you're still going to work and you're going to the bus and you're getting in a cab and doing all these various things, just like green paint is dumped on you. I just checked.
I know. You're looking in that direction. I'm thinking, oh, he's done now. Anyway. Huh. No, I just remember something Papaji said, vigilance until your dying breath.
Oh,
Yes.
that's good. Yeah.
Well, and because you won't know you're dying, there won't be a concept of dying because you won't have a mind that tells you you're dying. You'll just be here and then not. But knowing that you never were, that all of this that you believe was true one time is appearing on your spontaneous presence. It's not you. It has nothing to do with you, other than you know you exist, and then boom, all of this is here. So while you have this body form, understand that the sense of existence, that sense of presence, just I, you're the knower of that, and to know yourself in a real sense is just to pay attention to presence and not all these forms that are appearing on it.
And that's the whole practice. That's the hammering, right? Just to get your...
Yes, you're refreshing your memories that all this stuff is just discard. The memory is, oh, so that I. Not that, not this, so that I. All this that appears on my spontaneous presence is absolutely an illusion. I forgot who I was, so to speak. Forgot meaning I thought for a time that I was this body in this world doing these various things, that there were other people and all this kind of stuff. But that's just not true. The spontaneous presence that I'm the formless knower of is my identity. And that is the nothing, where something for a time, because there's a sense of existence in an entire dream world has popped up, dream waking world. When that goes away, this world, it subsides, it goes back into the nothing. And the way you know that is, this sense of existence appeared to something. If there was no something, then the sense of existence could not have appeared. It just how? So there was something when the sense of existence appeared. When the sense of existence is no longer there, that same something that was there prior to beingness will be there after leaving the body. Formless. And all this stuff that happened in between never actually happened. Nothing. And yet, while you're using this body form in this dream world, illusory world, don't worry about anything, but do what's right in front of you and take care and enjoy. And when it gets sunny outside, celebrate being sunny. And if you go to work and you have a lot of work to do, do your work. But don't be stressing and pressuring and thinking that you have to do all these things and push, the rat race, so to speak. None of this. No.
Yeah, and you don't take, what do you call it, place a lot of weight on the outcome of things. It's more like you're putting in your effort and the outcome will be what it is. Because
spontaneous actions.
Yeah, you're related. If you're invested in the outlook, then there's a me who's invested in something.
Exactly. Spontaneous actions in the moment. Everything is no matter what it is. It could be like writing your will and testament or having to go to the hospital for surgery. Pick up, put down. Spontaneous action in the moment without a deed or a doer of any kind, because there's no footprint in memory and there's no expectation of any future. There's no time because you are formless. So time has to do with a local identification. You're not taking a local identification, you're using an instrument in the moment and putting it down.
It's like going through life with a light touch, kind of.
Absolutely. You don't take the touch of anything.
Yeah, but you still have like compassion for those that are taking the touch.
I don't know. There's no, because there's no sense of you. So there's not like me and you. It's not seen that way. It's just known that this presence is sort of just spontaneously speaking through different, like an orchestra. Basically, this kind of meeting here is very much like an orchestra. Open the mouth and something comes out and then doesn't come out. And it's all just one air that's moving all the instruments and making all the instruments speak or make sounds. But it's just one air that's going through with all the little holes that are making various different sounds.
Yeah, that's interesting, because if there's no other, then how can there be any compassion?
Well, compassion is, again, it's a body-based thing. And just like Maharaj talks about your family, okay, you show compassion and but the deepest understanding is the body. This body created a family based on the 5 elements getting together and continuously procreating. You know, they get together and boom, there's a synergy that happens that creates another form. Then dogs will create dogs, and cats will create cats, and humans will create other humans. But all are animated by the sense of presence moving about in all these lumps of goo. There's no father, mother, anything like that, other than this lump of goo got together with this lump of goo, and one other new lump of goo was created. But how is that an attachment to you? And how are you any different? Or how is anyone not related to you as all is yourself? And you know this immediately by all of these lumps of goo that are procreating as cats and dogs and people and all this, or humans and all this kind of stuff, appeared on the spontaneous presence that you're the knower of. How can they be related to you? And yet, you love your family. You know, they have a birthday or they have a celebration that they did well in high school or they're graduating or something. You go and you clap and all of that. But you don't, because like Maharaj said, just because you know this doesn't mean you need to keep telling yourself, oh, all of this is just illusion. No, enjoy. Because the whole reason you're here is to enjoy. Like you enjoy, but don't get all caught up in it. Don't take the touch.
So that's the challenge. But it seems like it's time.
Yes, indeed. All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you, John.
Good day.
I see you. Thank you.
Andrew, I was going to tell him,